Hello, my culinary pirates. I hope you're all doing well today. What are we making today? We're gonna make some hot dog and hamburger buns. So this is a soft roll. It's gonna be really nice and delicate and hopefully nice and soft, like we like a hot dog and hamburger roll. All right, so the first thing we need to do is you guys need to go on your scavenger hunt. You remember? If you've watched the other videos, the scavenger hunt, we're gonna start with your utensils. So, we need a bowl for mixing. A nice big bowl like this, okay? You need a mixing spoon. I use a wooden one. You can use a metal one, whatever you have, but it should be a good size because you're gonna see, we're gonna get some exercise today. You need measuring cups for dry ingredients. You're gonna need measuring spoons. I'm gonna show you these measuring spoons and measuring cups, okay? Gonna need a knife. I'm gonna use a dough knife, okay? But if you have a kitchen knife or even a butter knife will work, okay? Gonna need a liquid measuring cup, and I'll explain to you what's in this liquid measuring cup, all right? Gonna need a cutting board. This is the cutting board I like to use. If you don't have a big cutting board like this, you can do it right on a surface. You just wanna sanitize it first, okay? Gonna need a kitchen thermometer. If you don't have a kitchen thermometer, we'll talk about that. That's because we have to heat the milk up, okay? A kitchen scale works really well so that your hot dog and hamburger buns are uniform. If you don't have one, we'll talk about that at that point. And then to form and cook your hot dog and hamburger buns, you need a baking pan. I find an 11-inch by 7 is ideal, or a 13 by 9. And I'll explain to you if you don't have that size of pan. An 11 by 7 looks like this, okay? And again, this is glass, can be metal, whatever. Cookie sheets. The professional term, and if you want to sound cool, is called a sheet pan. These are professional sheet pans, and you can see they've been used a lot. And they're gonna get used today, okay? So, that's the scavenger hunt for the equipment. Now, the recipe is as follows. 2/3 cup of flour, okay? Just AP flour. Remember, if you wanna comment and let me know how smart you are, AP. What does AP mean? A little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt, a package of yeast. Okay, so that's what a package of yeast looks like. You can get it in any grocery store, a couple bucks. If you have loose yeast like I use, you want about 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, we need some eggs, and you see I have 2. The recipe only calls for 1. We'll get to that. And then you need hot milk, butter, okay? Now, I have my milk in there and my butter in there because I want the hot milk to melt my butter, okay? And I have the yeast in there because you want to get that yeast in there early so it can start growing. Yeast is a living thing. It's a living being. So you want to feed that, all right? You want to get that working. All right, so that's our ingredients, and that is our utensils. Scavenger hunt, pause the video, and when you come back, remember, wash your hands. This is gonna be a recipe where you're gonna use your hands a lot, so wash them often and when needed, okay? So we'll see you in a little bit. All right, pause the video, get your stuff together. See you in a little bit. All right, so have you got everything? Now, you're probably wondering, Chef Quinn, that's like 2 cups of milk. You're saying we only need 1 cup of milk. That's 2 eggs. That's because I'm doubling the recipe. And if you can double that recipe, if you can take these ingredients and double it, put that in the comment box below. And if whoever gets it right gets to pick something for me to cook for you, okay? So, can you double the recipe? All right? So, now, let me talk about the warm milk. use the thermometers to get the milk to about 100 degrees before you put the yeast in. If you get it too hot, like I said, it's a living thing, it'll die. And we don't want that. So if you don't have a thermometer, put your 1 cup of milk in a microwave safe container, put it in the microwave for about 45 seconds to a minute. That'll warm it enough to get the yeast going, because the yeast likes warmth and it's not going to be too hot to kill it. All right? So milk, and then drop your yeast in and your butter, okay? And the butter will start melting. 2 eggs. So the next thing I want to talk about is scaling or measuring out your flour, all right? It's very important to get a proper measure on your flour. If you do not, well, then you're going to have a heavy dough. And this is a really light dough. So I want to show you. I've already, for time's sake, I've already measured out some, but I have 2 more cups of flour that I need to make my recipe. So flour gets very heavy, it settles, so you want to fluff it. You literally want to move it around and kind of aerate your flour before you measure it. And I recommend taking a secondary scoop like this and putting it in. If you don't have a scoop, you can just do it normally. Overfill it. Take your knife, slide it right across, all right? That's 1 cup. Let me show you once more, and I'll do it without the scoop so you can see how you'd want to do it. Just take your measuring cup, move it around, get it nice and light, all right? Boom, boom. Okay? Now we have our flour. Now I'm going to take that flour out of the way to give us some room, because we're going to start adding stuff in. So, I've got my salt measured out. I got my sugar measured out. I have 2 eggs. I'm going to put them right in there. This is my extra flour for kneading. I'll explain that later. And you want to get your milk. Give it a good stir before it goes in. All right, you guys are all ready to work? This is when it happens. I'm gonna just take a little rubber spatula because I want to get all that goodness out of there, okay? All right, now, 100 stirs, 100 mixes. Ready? I'm gonna count it off. And you're gonna watch and see how it transforms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm gonna count to myself for a little bit. You know how many that's been? That's 50. All right, so keep going. You guys can do this. This is great exercise. Sometimes you need to change and move it to your other hand. That's okay. Whatever it takes. I'm left-handed. I don't mix so well right-handed, but it's okay. It's all good. All right, that's about 100. Now we're going to use a technique that you've seen me do in the past. If you saw the flour tortilla, we're going to knead it. Excuse me. We're going to knead the dough. So, it's still a really moist dough right now. That mixing gets the gluten strands working. We've talked about gluten in the past. We can talk about it more if you're interested in knowing about it. But the gluten is the structure of bread. All bread. You have to make long gluten strands for bread to hold its shape and to be tender. and to hold up to the baking process, okay? So I'm using my dough knife bowl scraper to get all that out of there. You see that? See that? You can use a rubber spatula if you have it. Okay. All right. This is where our flour comes in. Now, have you washed your hands? If you haven't, now's the time. Because it's gonna start out messy, and then it's gonna get really nice, what you'd think bread would look like. Even to the point that at the beginning, what I like to do is use my knife, okay? So this is what kneading is. You're gonna take and you're gonna fold the dough back on itself, all right? Fold the dough back on itself. And we're gonna do this for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then when that's done, we're gonna set it to rest. Again, we need that yeast to keep working to rise the dough, okay? So I'm gonna show you another minute or two of this, and then I'll be back later to show you the rest. See how it's still sticky? It's all right. That's why we have our extra flour, and that's why we use the dough knife. As it goes, though, it'll start, those strands of gluten will start working, and it won't be so sticky to our hands and to the board. So I'll see you in about 6 minutes, all right? We'll see you then. Bye. Hello, friends. I'm still kneading. Are you? All right, so I've been kneading for about 6 minutes. Now look at the difference, huh? See how it's nice and beautiful and stretches and holds. The least amount of flour, the better, because the more flour you put in, the heavier the dough. But this is really nice. Now, okay, so we have a beautiful dough, right? Look at that, gorgeous. Now, we need to let this rest for about 45 minutes or an hour, depending. What you want to do, so the yeast is in there, and it's eating the sugars. We put sugar in there, there's milk in there that has sugar, butter has a little bit of food for the yeast, and flour all have food for the yeast. So those yeast are going to eat that sugar, and it's going to create carbon dioxide, and it's going to create alcohol, and it's going to blow right up. So we want our dough to sit and let that yeast eat for about 45 minutes or an hour. And when we come back, this will be doubled in size, all right? So the bowl that you mixed in, you can wash it out, at least get it pretty clean, and a little bit of oil. Just a little bit of oil, or butter, or whatever you have, right? And in it goes. We just want to roll it around and then flip it over, okay? Now, 45 minutes, an hour from now, we'll be back, and I will show you how it's doubled, and then we'll keep going. We're gonna make some hot dogs, all right? So we'll talk to you soon, okay? Back again, real quick. If you caught this, you can cover it with a towel, with a dish towel or plastic wrap too, and that helps keep it from drying on the top. The oil will keep it from drying, but it also creates a nice warm environment for your yeast your dough to rise in a nice warm spot. All right? See you in 45 minutes. Hey everyone, how you doing? Is your bread rising? Is that yeast living and cooking and eating and all that? All right. So before we look at the bread, I want to talk to you about the 12 steps of bread making. I have them listed out here for you. And if you're interested, you can take a picture of that, stop it and look. So, scaling. That's when we measured out our ingredients, our flour, our butter, our milk, our sugar, our salt, all that stuff. Mixing was when we mixed it. Remember that? That good exercise? And the kneading. The kneading is also part of the mixing. So now we're in the fermentation. We're going to go to folding or degassing. Then we're going to cut our bread into portion size. And then we're going to do what's rounding, and then resting, and then shaping, and then another fermentation. Okay? So, let's begin with that. And then baking and cooking we're going to have to come back to. Alright? So, let's take a look at our fancy bread. One thing I didn't say before, if you oiled it, you should have been fine, but you can cover it, right? I did a little piece of plastic wrap. Look at the difference. Do you remember the difference? Now, you may not know if it's doubled. You might say, Chef Quinn, I don't know if it's doubled. You tell me double. How do I know? Well, if you use a clear, like plastic container, something like that, you can make a little mark, and when it comes up double. But another thing you can do is you can take 2 fingers and press it in, okay? Now, if those hold, if those indentations hold, you see what I did? If those 2 indentations hold, then you've doubled your bread. If you press your finger in and it immediately seizes up or cinches back, then it needs to rise more. So this is really beautiful. All right, so we're gonna take some of our flour, we're gonna put it on our bread, on our cutting board, not too much. And we're gonna take, if you have a spatula or something, you can do it with your hand because we greased the bowl. So, to remember what I said about yeast, it's got all this air in it now, and that's why it's doubled up. But what we want to do is we want to just delicately press out some of that gas. Because if we don't, we're going to get, have you ever had pizza and you get a pizza and there's a big bubble, something like that? That's because it wasn't what's called degassed or folded. Okay, so that's number 4 in the process. Folding, also called degassing. We've taken out a lot of that gas, okay? Now there's still living yeast in here. There's still sugars it's gonna eat, okay? So that's gonna be in a little bit because we're gonna have to raise it again. So what we wanna do is we wanna divide this into portions. And this is where the scale comes into handy. For me, in my experience, if you have a scale, a good size for a hamburger roll or a hot dog is about 2 3/4 to 3 ounces. So what we want to do is we want to cut it, whether you have a dough knife or if you have a just a regular knife, a butter knife, just kind of want to cut it, okay? And you see how tender and delicate this dough is? It's really beautiful. So, what we want to do is we want to take a little piece and put it on there. 2 5/8, that's going to be a nice size hot dog or hamburger roll. But let's say you don't have a scale, okay? What are we going to do? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do something called guessing, right? We're going to take that size dough and we're going to go double to make a hamburger bun this big. So if we step ahead to 6 and round it off and we look at that, if that doubles, is that going to give us a nice hamburger bun? I think it is. So that's all you're going to do. You're going to take and you're going to cut a piece of dough and you're going to round it, and I'll show you more on rounding, but you're going to set that on your board. Well, does that look like that's going to make a hamburger bun if you double that? I think it is. I think it is. Okay? So, if you do not have again, if you do not have a scale, don't fret. Just use your imagination, use your thoughts, because you got it. All right, so I'm going to cut all this out, and this is the first step. I'm just going to cut these out. So I'll be back in just a minute or two, and all these will be ready to go, and I'm going to show you the next step, okay? We'll talk to you soon. Hello everyone, so we're back. So we divided the dough, right? We divided the dough, see? Look how many we got. So I doubled the recipe. What do we have? 3, 6, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So you can figure around 10 to 12 rolls for your stuff. So we divided the dough. Now we're gonna round it, okay? There's a few different ways. Now when you're, I'll start with the easy way, right? What you wanna do is using two hands, you can just roll it on itself. You see how I'm doing that? You're not pressing the dough hard. You're just rounding the dough, okay? Till it's nice, beautiful ball like that, right? And then we're gonna do that with all of these. Let me show you again. So, dominant hand, non-dominant hand. You're just rolling the dough. You see that? You're watching this on YouTube. You can slow the speed down. You see that? I didn't degas it enough. So you can just pick those little air bubbles out of there. You can slow this down. So I'm talking like this, right? You can slow it down if you need a little flour, if it starts sticking, okay? That's what you're doing, okay? So, again, you're just rolling it, rolling it, rolling it. There's another way. I'm going to show you a couple ways, okay? I'm going to take a little bit, I'm going to push a little bit of my flour off the board, because if you're going to do it on the board, the flour, you need the dough to kind of almost stick a little bit to the board. See how I'm doing that? You're keeping it in the palm of your hand. You can get a little flour for your hand, but you don't want too much for the board. See? Again, use your technology, friends, and slow this down so you can watch. This takes a lot of practice, but you can do it. You can do it. See that? Now, when you get good, when you get practice, watch this. See that? See that? A little flour. Again. So now after I roll all these out, see that? Again, use your technology, friends. Slow it down. You can get a little flour on the board. You don't want to stick too much, but you don't want to. If you get to this point, see how that's sliding? That's too much flour on that. We just move it around, find a spot. So this is called the rounding. This is stage number 6 or step number 6 in the process. All right? After that, we'll let this rest for about 5 or 10 minutes. The resting is to allow the gluten to relax again, because when we're doing what we're doing right now, when we're rounding it, we're creating a lot of tension on that gluten, and that gluten strand tightens right up, right? It's not so big a deal for the hamburger buns, because they're just going to be round. They're going to be, we've actually already done step 6 and 7 and 8 for the hamburger buns, because that's the shape of a hamburger bun, right? We're just going to let that rest like that, push it down a little bit, and you've got hamburger buns. But we need to let the gluten relax so we can shape our hot dog buns, okay? So I'm just gonna set out 11 of these, and these are gonna be our hamburger buns. 11. And you see I put a little bit of flour down. You can put a little oil down if you want. We'll put that in the hot dog pan, right? So then just take a little flour on your hands, press these down, okay? Right? Now these, we're gonna set these to stage 9, which is the final fermentation. We're gonna let them rest again for another half an hour, 45 minutes, so they can come back up, so the yeast can get back to work, making that nice big poof again, to where it's a hamburger roll. Sometimes too, you can take plastic wrap. This is my plastic wrap from my bowl from before, but you can cover the buns with plastic wrap, right? Like that. And if you have another sheet pan or cookie sheet, just let's pretend that that's completely covered, you can weight it a little bit. So when the burger rises, the burger's gonna rise, but because there's a weight on it, it'll also expand out this way, the way we want a hamburger bun to look, okay? So we're gonna set this off to the side, and we're gonna get that covered, and that's gonna proof again or ferment again for another 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll be back for the final step of baking it. But I'm gonna show you why we need to rest the dough, okay? This is our hot dog bun we're gonna make. We have a nice rounded shape, but we've just been rounding it, right? We've been rounding it, and the gluten is really tight. So what happens when we do this? What we wanna do is we wanna make kind of a cigar shape or a log, right? We wanna pat it out, we wanna roll it over, pushing out some of those bubbles that we see, and we wanna pinch it, okay? Now, did you see how it sprung back? That's because the gluten's really tight. The gluten's really tight, and it sucks back in. So, we're gonna let that rest for about 5 minutes, but while that's resting, I wanna show you, you can use, if you have cooking spray in your home, or a little bit of oil, or a little bit of butter, something like that, any sort of fat, right? I'm gonna use a little oil, just a little bit. You see, I hardly put any in, but take your hand, or a paper towel, or something like this, and you're gonna run that in. And if you've ever made a cake, we're gonna do about the same thing. We're gonna take a little bit of this flour, and we're gonna dust it in. The reason why we're doing this is the same for the hamburger buns. So when the hot dog bun rises, it's gonna poof up and it's gonna bake. It's not gonna stick to the pan, okay? So we saw that sprung back, but sometimes if you just let it rest for another minute or so, might be all right, okay? So that's gonna be our hot dog bun. It doesn't look like much now, but I'm gonna show you the technique. You notice that I use that to kind of clean my board up sometimes. If you don't have one of these, it's okay, because I bet you have a spatula. I bet your mom has a spatula. Now this is kind of a professional model, but you get the idea. You can use that too, right? To clean your board up. Because again, you don't need a whole lot of flour. You need a little bit so that it doesn't stick, but you don't need a whole lot, all right? So let me show you again, okay? Now if you saw my flour tortilla video, it's the same type of thing. That gluten wants to spring back. It wants to suck back in. So, for time's sake, I haven't let that rest for the 5 minutes I asked you guys to, but you have the time. Hit pause, right? And then let it rest. Now, it springs back, but that's okay, because I have half a dozen, or almost a dozen of these to work. See how it's sticking a little? Not a problem. We've got our little reservoir of flour that we work, okay? And I'm working with the dough a little quick, I understand that. But again, you have the technology to slow the process down so you can watch. You see how the difference between even this one to this one, that one hardly slunk back at all. But we're gonna just keep it there, right? And I'm gonna roll through these. Now, if you're understanding what I'm doing, you've got the YouTube technology to speed it up, right? Chef Quinn, I got this. See that? See how that dough, just that minute or two that I let that rest, that hardly springs back at all. But you've got this. You say, oh, Chef Quinn, I know what I'm doing. I'm getting it. My hot dog buns look great. Hit the fast forward, right? See that? When you get really good at this, you can do it pretty quick. You see how quick I'm doing it? And the trick to it, let me slow down. You see how I'm spreading my fingers? That right there pulls the hot dog bun out, okay? So, let's take a little measure, just for argument's sake. That's about 6 inches, okay? That's a nice length for your hot dog bun, okay? 2 more. 2 more. Now these I can't do 2 at a time. Hot hamburger buns, 2 at a time. Hot dog buns, 1 at a time. But if you get good and you can figure out how to do 2 hot dog buns at once, I want to see it. You post that video, I'll be really impressed. All right, kids. My culinary pirates, as I called you earlier. Did you guys catch that? My culinary pirates. And has anyone found out where the Ocoee River is? Put it in the comment box. Okay, so you see how nice that dough is to work with? It's hardly springing back at all. It's that means the gluten's relaxed. That means it's ready to rise. So when we put these in, give it a nice little, try and keep it as uniform as possible, a nice little roll. When we put these in, we want to just put them pretty close together, because what we really want is we want when the dough to rise, that they all kind of, and then if they come together, then the dough has nowhere to go but up, right? Because we want a nice full hot dog bun. We're gonna do what's called a top split hot dog bun, right? You've probably seen these. And later on, after they bake, I'll show you why you want a top split. All right, plastic wrap over the top, 35 to 40 minutes. We're gonna let these rise, okay? So we'll see you in 35 or 45 minutes. Talk to you soon. Ha-ha! I'm here. Fooled ya. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, so one of the things that I neglected to mention a minute or two ago in this video, but in effect a half an hour ago, was to preheat your oven. So get your oven up to temperature, because you want to put these into a hot oven. So preheat your oven to 375, and we're going to bake them for 15 to 20 minutes, okay? So 35, half an hour to 45 minutes of rising should have given you something beautiful like this. Look at these, right? And I'm gonna peel these off real lightly. Excuse me. All right? So they've risen, they've pushed together, okay, which has made them pop up. So when we bake these, they're gonna expand again, okay? It's called oven spring. So these will even puff up a little more once they hit the heat, because that's like the yeast right at the last minute, just doing all they can before they cook and make us beautiful bread. So this is number 10. This is the baking process we're going to do. Real quick, in the oven, 15-20 minutes, and then we'll cool it, and then I'll talk about storage. But 3 things. You can put these into the oven just like this, like they are right now, which is what I'm going to do. But there's 2 other options you can do. You could take and make what's called an egg wash. An egg wash is just an egg beaten up with a little bit of water. You brush that on there. You brush that on typically with what's called a pastry brush that, yes, looks exactly like a paintbrush. All right? You paint them on, you paint that egg wash on, and you're gonna get a nice shiny, shiny roll. Or what I like to do is take a little sifter, right? A little sifter like this, put a little flour in it, and tap a little flour over the top of your rolls. That's gonna give it a beautiful softness to the roll. The flour kind of just, I don't know why, but it just gives a nice soft top to the roll. So those are some things you can do. The other thing, if you do the egg wash on your rolls, you can take some nice sesame seeds, right? You make a sesame seed roll if you want, or poppy seeds, or onions if you like an onion roll. So a lot of different things, but we're gonna keep these nice and neutral. In the oven they go 15 to 20 minutes. We'll be back in a little bit, and you can see some gorgeous rolls. All right? We'll talk to you soon. And we're back, friends. So, this is what I like to call, when I bake bread, or anything that goes into the oven and just smells so good when it's cooking, I call it the great reveal. All right? So, about 15 to 18 minutes, maybe 20 minutes at the most, we're good to go. I'm shutting my oven off, and I'm pulling it out. I'm pulling the breads out. Look at those hamburger buns. Look at those hot dog buns. Woohoo! So, let's take a look. Let's judge our craft. How did we do? Get another rack, because I'm going to take these off pretty much as soon as I can, because I want them. What happens if you cool these on the pan, they'll steam on the bottom. So what we want to do is we want to look. Ooh, a nice brown on the bottom, huh? See that? Gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. So this is what we call the cooling process. So we're at the cooling stage. Now again, we want to take our rolls off, space them as much as you can. If you don't have a cooling rack, just take them. I'm going to show you that. Maybe you can see it. There's steam rising right off of that. Oh, it's beautiful. If you don't have cooling racks, what you can do is you can take a cold cookie sheet, a cold sheet pan, and put it on there. It'll steam a little bit, but at least the cool pan will start to get the cooling process going. If you keep it on a hot sheet pan, you're gonna what's called carryover cook, and then you're gonna get a real crusty bottom. All right? So you can't cut these right now because they're so tender. Look how tender they are. See that? See that? That's beautiful. But in a little bit, after they cool, we can cut them. So same thing with the hot dog buns. This is a little bit more tricky because this is coming out whole, right? So with a hot mitt, what you can do is you can flip it, remove the pan, and lay them there. All right? When these are cool, what you'll do is you'll slice here, and then you'll slice here. So the hot dog or whatever you want goes in here, and these 2 sides you can take, because they'll be flat, you can toast them in a pan. You can butter them and toast them in a pan. Maybe you've seen these type of rolls. All right? So these are your hot dog buns. These are your hamburger buns, obviously. And that, my friends, is better than any hamburger bun or hot dog bun you buy in the store. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned from it. And if you have any questions, write in the comments, okay? I know there's a few things here and there that I might have missed that may be confusing to you, and that's okay. Bread making is a process, and it takes practice. So you do it often, and you get better, and you get better, and you get better. And soon, maybe you'll never even want to buy bread from a store anymore because it tastes so good. All right? So, once again, any comments you got, write down below. And we'll see you in another video soon, okay? Take care. Bye.